Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jackson Long, and I'm in long-term recovery. And for me, that means I haven't had a drink or a drug since January 14th, 2006. This panel is a little bit different. We don't have a whole lot of people to go through, so it's just me and Jason. We're going to bounce back and forth between the slides and go through the 4 house stages and 5 core principles today. And then we'll have a little bit of discussion and Q&A at the end for as many as we can get to with the allotted time before the next panel. Lanyards and name badges are required to enter all sessions. Please silence your cell phone so that you don't disrupt those around you or the speakers. Please keep the side conversations to outside the room. If you feel like you need to talk to those people that are next to you, step outside, have your conversation, and then come back in. No smoking or vaping near any of the entrances, in any of the parking garages, near the building at all. There are designated areas outside. Everybody that smokes or vapes should already be aware of that by this time. Please dispose of your cigarette butts properly. I think we have had a little bit of a problem with cigarette butts just being stomped out on the ground. And it's important to take this information back home, and you're going to hear that repeated over and over again because it is so important. So if you can, take some notes, or if you want to take pictures of some of the slides, we'll try to give people a little bit of a chance. There are some slides here where I see a lot of cameras come out. We'll try to make sure that you have a little bit of time to take some pictures of the slides, but again, it will be available online after probably a couple months after the convention. And then we're only going to take questions at the end. So we want to get through the PowerPoint completely because early on you may have some questions. Those questions may be answered later on during the presentation. But at the end we'll have some microphones on the aisle, and you can line up to ask questions at that time. All right, got that out of the way. So 4 house stages and 5 core principles. I have a clicker right here. It's very different than my clicker at home. Green goes forward.
Green.
Oh, the big green one, not the fireworks green one. Okay, so here's the blueprint. How many were you at this one last year? You remember the theme? Well, wow, I just gave those instructions.
She was on her phone.
Well, that was a cool ringtone, though. Do you all remember what the theme was? It was the meal, right? It was the meal. Now we're going to build a house. This is the theme, we're going to build a house. Yeah, they're working on fixing this one, so you might want to pay attention to this one. We had the projector go out on this one, so this one may flicker. They're trying to get everything up and going, so apologize for the technical difficulties. So part 1, which I'll go through, we're going to find new land, a new day and a new you. Then I'm going to hand it over to Jason. He's going to go through laying the foundation, talking about the structure and support. He will then go on to part 3, building the frame, and talk about the 4 house stages. I'll come back in and talk about part 4, where we place the walls and the roof of our newly established house, and we talk about the 5 core principles. And then we will finish up where we will furnish and decorate, and we will have a review and a discussion. Boy, a lot of pictures. This is just the blueprint. We haven't even gotten into it yet. All right, part 1. Finding new land. Oh, there's another phone going off. I like that song too. All right, you versus you. So you take a look at yourself internally, and who are you as a person? Who were you in active addiction? Think about that. Are you that person today? You've changed. You've grown. Think about you when you first entered recovery. Are you that person? You've grown. You've changed. When you first moved into Oxford House, are you that person? You're continuing to grow and change. 1 year recovery. How many of you have it 1 year or more? Wow, that's most of the room. Most of the room. 1 year recovery, you're very different than you were in active addiction, New to recovery, new to Oxford House? How many of you consider yourselves in long-term recovery? There we go. A few less hands, but still a lot of hands in the room. So that's really the goal for all of us, I would hope, is to find long-term recovery. Paul Malloy said it best. We become comfortable enough in sobriety that we never have to use drugs and alcohol again. That's what we want. So what do you see? Yell it out. What do you see? You see a man. See an old man. Now, what did you see? See a dog? See a woman with a baby? Look up around the arch. What do you see? Do you see the faces? Okay. This is a reminder that the quickest way to uncover a common truth is to get as close as possible to the situation and then exhaust all perspectives. And I say that because sometimes in Oxford House, we are so quick to make a decision based on a very limited perspective with very limited truths. We are not very close to it. We need to get closer to it. We need to listen to all different perspectives. That's where the true success of Oxford House comes into play. It's each other working together, allowing everybody to speak their truth, their perspective, and us incorporate that in adapting and growing and changing from it. If we try to force people into our truths, our beliefs, our perception, is that who you want to live with? A bunch of people just like you? I can't imagine living in an Oxford House where there's 8 other Jackson Longans running around. That would get on my nerves. We need the diversity in Oxford House. It's really a good thing. It is. But sometimes we're so quick to dismiss somebody because they're different, or maybe they're newer in recovery. Maybe they're that part of you. They're earlier in those stages of change than you are. And maybe we don't mean to, but we think of them maybe as a little less than because they don't have the experience of us. So our truths are maybe carry a little bit more weight. So be mindful of that when you're in an Oxford House, when you're dealing with people's behaviors that maybe indicate that they're not quite ready at that long-term recovery stage. They're going through the stages of change. And with that, there will be bumps in the road, but that's why we're in an Oxford House, so that we can support each other as we develop and change and grow. It is so important that we don't dismiss people too early. We expel them for making mistakes that are common mistakes for people to make in early recovery. I hear story after story about people living in an Oxford House and they'd rather work a second shift than go home because they have to walk on eggshells when they come home because everybody's holding the rules over their head like a weapon for punishment instead of tools for growth. Oxford House is a home for recovery, not a shelter for abstinence. Recovery is a process. It takes time, and we need to be there to support people no matter what stage they're at. Now, the active addiction, obviously, we can support them from a different address, but we still want to support everybody no matter where they're at in their process. And if they're living with us, we want to work with them until it becomes so disruptive that we have no other choice but to ask them to leave. And then we can support them from afar. So we need to make a pact today. Can we be open during this presentation? Are you willing to have an open mind and listen to the information and look at it objectively and maybe even think a little bit differently after this presentation? Are you open to that? Okay. Are you willing? Are you willing to take some of the information that you learn here, maybe incorporate it into your house meetings, into the culture that is in your home, in your area? Are you willing to carry this message forward? And will you do it with honesty? Because if you're not honest with yourself about where you are on the stages of change, if you're not honest with yourself on where you do have some judgment and prejudices that may prevent you from being of maximum support to the people around you and in the house, then it becomes very challenging to continue on that path towards growth. Honesty is very important in recovery and in Oxford House. So can we be honest during this presentation? Because Jason and I are going to get brutally honest in a little bit. And it may be uncomfortable for some of you because you may be able to relate, but I want you to be open and willing to receive the honest communication that we share today. Can we all agree and make that a pact? All right. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jason. He's going to lay the foundation.
Thank you, Jackson. My name is Jason Jara, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is I haven't found it necessary to use a mind or mood-altering chemical since November 29th of 2011. Through a program of recovery, which I choose to call AA and Oxford House, I'm truly grateful for that. So laying the foundation, we're going to talk about what some people call long-term members, may also have the term senior members. We like to call them seasoned members. So I'm going to break it down for you a little bit. So a seasoned member is filling that role of leadership. They're being of service. They're offering support to the newcomer. They're offering support to the newer houses. And they're being a teacher of the information that was given. They're not hogging that information and keeping it to themselves. A core member is a seasoned member who really moves to a new house to help to be of service and to show and guide and help to replicate the model of Oxford House. Now that senior member, hold on now, hold on. My apologies. That senior member probably doesn't have apathy. They're isolating in their room, probably having their significant other come over, probably have that cable box, sometimes with the premium package in their room. They're probably controlling. More than likely, they're really intimidating, right? So do we have any senior members in this room? Were you once a senior member and have transitioned over? Now that's some good honesty right there. That's some good honesty. So when we enter Oxford House, at least for me, you know, when I was looking at coming to an Oxford House and was suggested, I had a little agency called the DEA on my back. So I was looking at some pretty hefty time. I had gotten out of treatment. I went home. And I quickly realized that while I had the support of a grandmother and family, I quickly realized they didn't understand what I was going through here. Now, they had some isms. Isms definitely ran in my family. In Louisiana, we celebrate everything. Hurricane parties, any tragedy, births, celebrations, anything, everything is a celebration. So the isms were in my family, but they didn't know what I was going through up here. So it was suggested to me to go to an Oxford House. And after being home for 2 weeks, I realized I needed to get the hell out because I was heading back to that old way. So when I entered, I really entered for myself. It was for me. It was to get the family off my back. It was to get the paper. And that really was all it was for in the beginning, was to get that paper so that I can say, this is what I'm doing to the judge. So hopefully, I will get a slap on the wrist. But what I quickly realized is that Oxford House was so much more. In Louisiana at the time, we only had 87 houses. In Baton Rouge, we had about 13 houses. And I realized that it was much more than what I had expected. I began to go to chapter meetings. I went to my first state convention. And later that year, I went to the World Convention, which was in Oklahoma City. And I realized that I had the support of not only those individuals in the house, but I had the support of people across the country. And when I started getting involved, I was no longer there for myself. I became involved and was giving back. It wasn't about me anymore. Now, in the first 2 years of that part that I was there in Baton Rouge, I ended up getting hired. Unfortunately, Jackson did not hire me. There's a running joke that I have. Jackson interviewed me, didn't hire me, and I was hired over in Mississippi. And now we we work together alongside each other. But you know, that 2 years that I was there, I started dealing with the whole legal situation. And really, I've forgotten all about it. It was always in the back of my mind. But I kept doing the next right thing. I kept doing what the people in the house suggested. I kept doing what my sponsor suggested. I kept doing what the people in my home group suggested. And things got better, emotionally and physically. And then over the time, all those legal troubles subsided and really dissipated. So what I want you to ask yourself, and really ask those individuals that come in, is to challenge them as well. What motivates you? You know, as we talked about when we first started, are you the same person when you first entered Oxford House? Most of you answered no. And so reminding that individual when they come in, you are going to grow here. We're going to support you. What was important for me, now that I look back on it, was that the individuals in the house that I moved in, I'm a gay man, and I had a lot of shame and fear around coming out to them. And so that on top of dealing with my addiction was just another struggle that I had to deal with. But those men in that home supported me, and they showed me by example, not telling me what to do, but they showed me by example how to change and how to be of service. So what motivates you? What keeps you going? Obviously, money is always going to be a motivator, but food, right? So I heard someone say earlier that they were trying to go to a chapter meeting. They told them to come and get in the car, and they said, no, I think it was Eric Perkins. And they said, well, food would be there, and he got in the car. You know, in Louisiana, we have a cookout. We boil crawfish. We do all kind of stuff. So food is always a motivating factor into helping involve people. And find your intrinsic drive. Now, I had to look up the definition for intrinsic. Am I saying it right? Intrinsic. Does anybody know the definition? Do you know the definition? Intrinsic, belonging naturally and essential. Sometimes when we come in Oxford House, we're not intrinsic. We don't think we belong naturally, but it becomes essential to us. I think it's really essential to all of us sitting in this room here today. Oxford House and Recovery. So the Oxford House system is really a chain of support. Like many organizations, there's usually a board, CEO, president. It all goes from the top down, right? It's really not how Oxford House is set up. The houses are really the top of the structure. They have the direct support underneath them of the chapter, which is directly made up of those members that are in the house. To one side, they have the state association, which is also made up of those members a part of the chapter. And then on the other side, you have Oxford House Incorporated, which is us, which serves as the institutional memory to give you the ongoing training and support you need, because we know Oxford House is a revolving door, and individuals don't all stay the same length of time. So there's always new people coming in. After a while, sometimes that information may get watered down. So the Oxford House Incorporated office is there to give you that support. They're also the only one authorized to issue charters for Oxford House. So when you come into Oxford House, from the day you get there, you really have a voice. You have a say-so. Oxford House gives you a part of the responsibility to run that house and to be a part of your recovery and what goes on in your house. That's the fundamental groundwork of the democracy that is in Oxford House. From the day you enter until the day you leave. And then it even continues if you join the Alumni Association. You're part of that particular organization. So it really gives you equality, gives you the education, it gives you empowerment, and it gives you encouragement to be a better you and to be a better, productive member of society. So, what is the Oxford House model? Does anybody want to take a shot? Go back. So we will post this also. It'll also be on the YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch the reel back as well. So does anybody want to take a stab of what the Oxford House model is? Right back over here. Foundation. Okay. Replication. Self-sustaining and democratically ran. Okay. A home for people who want to stay stopped. What did you say? Okay. Anyone else? Recovery, responsibility, and replication. So all those are great answers, and it's part of the materials that's in there. But the model is made up, it really protects from external and internal forces, so from outside and inside. But the actual model is the Oxford House Charter. It's the 9 traditions. It's the manuals. All that information is also found on the national website, and it also is supported by the resolutions that's passed every year at the World Convention. And we'll talk about that this afternoon at the general session. So, building the frame. Now, Jackson started off by asking if we were going to be honest. So as I go through this, I want you to really think about where your house falls, where your area falls on this particular spectrum in these particular 4 stages. So stage 1 is a survival. 2 is stable. 3 is a successful. And 4 is a significant. Now, without going into detail yet, who can tell me is it a survival stage? Who do you think your house is in a survival? Let's see, 2, 3, 4, okay. Stable. All right. Successful. Okay. Who thinks their house in areas is significant?
Okay, I'm watching these hands.
Yes. Okay. So, to break them down, survival, house or area, it's generally new houses, high vacancies. More than likely they have high vacancies. 1 or more signs may be present for this one. Members are isolating in their bedrooms. Recovery participation is probably nil to none. The structure inside the house is absent. One of the things is being an outreach worker and working in the field, one of the things I used to look for, and usually is a telltale sign, there's a lot more going on if the house is dirty. That is like the number one thing I look at when I would go into a house. If the house is dirty, there's probably something going on. Fear of confrontation, which prevents accountability. There's no accountability in the house. Members are uneducated on the Oxford House model or unwilling to do any work. There's no unity or equality. There are probably cliques, and there's more than likely bossism going on. The bank account is depleted, or it has just maybe $2 or $3 after you've paid the rent and maybe 1 bill. So, multiple members owe EES. I've also seen houses where nobody owes EES, but still the bank account's depleted and half the bills are paid. Membership turnover is very high. No one stays very long.
Y'all gotta be quick with the camera. We only got an hour.
Yeah.
Well,
All right, moving on. So if you want to wait till the end, I'll let you take a picture of all of them up there. So stage 2, stable house. They're doing just enough to get by, and that's okay. But it's not enough. So members are doing the minimum for recovery to avoid consequences. I heard someone say that's their house. Old furniture, old beds, and old decor probably needs replacing. Might look okay, but it's probably not comfortable to sit on. You know, that whole couch has got the dip in it, with the chair that's really, really dirty on the arms. There's accountability is present, but it really depends on who it is. Right? It's all starting to click. Yeah. Some members have knowledge of Oxford House, but they really don't teach much. They're not sharing it. Now, I heard someone say that's us, or is that members in your house? Or are you being brutally honest and saying that you too? Okay. So members only get together once a week at the house meeting. It's the only time you see people is the house meeting. The bank account is low after paying rent. Kind of falls on the spectrum what I said a while ago. May be depleted, may still have just a few dollars in it. EES is owed, or it's too low. How many of you utilize the viability calculator? How many of you utilize the viability calculator to adjust your EES when you have a vacancy? So if you have a vacancy, you still pay the same EES? So how do you make up that person being gone? You really should look at doing the sliding scale, because if you lose a person and you have a vacancy, oh well, that's good. Not all areas have that though. You're doing something right. They said they have a waiting list. So there's a general lack of willingness or initiative to do any of the work. All right, hold on. I'm going back. You're welcome. Glad I can be of service. All right, moving on to successful. So it's really Oxford House as it was intended to be. One of these more signs may be present. So recovery is always first. Recovery comes first, no matter what. Principles are before the personalities. Right? The yard and house are spotless. It's probably a spring and summer and a fall cleaning that goes on. Don't forget to wipe your blinds and windows. Ceiling fan, that's another one. Behind the TV, that's a good one. Everyone in the house feels like an equal. It's principled democracy, right? Their seasoned members work with the newer members. You know, when I first came in, someone gave me a packet. They told me that I needed to read this and sign it and have it for the next meeting. Well, I didn't have it at the next meeting, and they asked me, do I need help to go through it to make sure that it was complete? So sitting down with that particular person and giving them the information, again, it was my responsibility to do it, but when I didn't have it, they held me accountable and asked me, okay, do you need help now? Right? Members spend time together doing family dinners or unity events. When I first moved in, the house always had a surplus, and we would buy milk, eggs, and bread every week. And milk, eggs, and bread were always there so that we can cook breakfast and we do things together. But we always had community food and to be together and to share on what was going on. Food definitely brings people together. Money in the checking account. A good rule of thumb is to try to have at least 1 month reserve of your bills in a savings account. And by doing that, you adjust your EES a little bit higher, not just doing the bare minimum to get by. You know, really making an effort to save money because there may not always be an influx of people that are on a waiting list, and then you're able to help other houses. You're able to help someone that comes and says, unfortunately, I want to move in, but I don't have any money. the house is able to allow that person some time or to pay that person's EES for that first week. The house participates in events and gives back. I remember, I think it was my 60 days or 90 days, the house was getting involved. We'd go do chapter meetings. They were involved in other house meetings. Housing services kind of grew out of that. Really staying involved and doing stuff in the community. There was a 12-step club where we'd go and do volleyball tournaments there. Really just getting involved back in the community. Hold on, I'm going back. It is going to be on YouTube. You'll be able to see the whole thing there. Yep. All right, moving on. Now, significant. The creme de la creme. They're stage 3 and they're going above and beyond, showing out. Members are leaders in the greater recovery community. They probably have the nicest yard on the block, all matching furniture, new mattresses, probably have a flat screen TV too. Meow. Principles definitely over personalities. Accountability is a teaching moment. I remember when I first moved in, fines in my house were $5 a piece. Nothing, right? My first week I had $50 in fines. Yeah, it added up real quick, but it was definitely a teaching moment for me. Seasoned members want to become core members and help move into another house. I had the opportunity, I think it was in my first 6 months, there was a house that we were losing a lot of members in, and I stepped up. I said, I want to go move into this house and help out. I also probably was able to get my own room because I was sharing a room. So there was a little bit more self-motivation in that, but it quickly turned into a teaching moment, and I was able to move over and help figure out the solution to the problems and get the house full with the help of some other members. So recovery milestones are celebrated. You know, we all used to get together and celebrate our milestones. We used to buy a big cake, get together and celebrate that. Recovery is really important. I mean, that's why we're here. So making sure that we're celebrating those milestones. There's enough extra money to donate to other houses and events. That house that I moved to really needed some help from some of the other houses, and the house that I moved from was able to give some money to help out. The house sets a high bar that other houses can look up to. They probably have a waiting list because people want to get into that house. Hold on, I'm going back. Oh, hold on. So, back to my question. Who here that raised their hand for a significant house still thinks they're in a significant house? A few went down. Now, who in here? I'm going to need to see some records. Who in here in a successful house still thinks they're in the successful house? All right. A lot of stable. Is there a lot of stable out there? So hopefully this information will help you to encourage you to go back and change and get some involvement in your area, right? That's what's up. He said he would walk with individuals if they didn't have a car and they came into the house. That's supportive. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jackson. Wait,
Thank
you from Louisiana? And you walk in the heat?
Thank you, Jason. Can't believe I didn't hire that guy.
Me either.
Okay, so Those of you that are in a stage 4 house really ain't got nothing to teach you the rest of the time. I mean, you can go to an early lunch if you want to. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to get you on the panel next year and you can share some experience on how your house does stage 4. For the rest 95% of you that are in the room, I want to help you get to stage 4, stage 3. Stage 3 really needs some special people living in a house to make that leap to stage 4. I would say, through my experience, I moved into my first house in 2007 in Stillwater, Oklahoma. From a small town, Stillwater, Oklahoma. It was the first house in that town. I had a year in recovery. I was living with my grandmother, but I knew I couldn't stay with her forever. I was 28 years old, and I didn't want to be that guy. Living with grandma, I didn't want to be that guy. She kept the fridge full. She's a good cook. And I didn't have any bills living at grandma's house. It was nice, but I didn't want to be that guy. I needed to learn and grow up. I needed to become an adult, and I was scared to live on my own. That thought terrified me because I get up here and it can be dangerous. But then living in a college town, I didn't want a random roommate because it's a college party town. You know, I wanted to protect myself from being around drugs and alcohol. No matter how safe or strong I thought my recovery was, I just didn't want to be around it. So when I heard about Oxford House, they came to my treatment center that I was at. Members from Tulsa and Oklahoma City came and did a presentation. I wish I would have paid closer attention, but I knew that I still had a job and a safe place to live at grandma's house, so I didn't pay that close attention to the presentation. You ever been to the presentation and you can tell the people that aren't really giving you any mind? That was me. I'm sorry. I apologize because now I give presentations. I'm like, they won't even look at me. Like they got something better to do. Either that or the treatment center has them heavily medicated and they're just not even with us. How many were those? Was maybe a little medicated in treatment and don't remember some of the people that came in to try to help. So when I opened this Oxford House, I wasn't a core member. I didn't know anything about Oxford House. I went to the website, and I remember calling the state of Oklahoma and being like, yeah, I need $4,000. It says here that I can get a loan to open this Oxford House. And the state was like, yeah, we don't just give that to random people. Like there's a process. You got to fill out some paperwork. So I filled out the paperwork. I went and toured this house. It was really a duplex, and I convinced this landlord to combine this duplex into one unit. It would knock out the adjacent wall between the two kitchens so that it was one house. So it had lots of parking, 2 kitchens, 2 washers and dryers. We converted the 2 living rooms into bedrooms. We had 6 bedrooms, 4 like it was a nice setup. I didn't realize how nice of a setup it was until I saw some other houses later. I'm like, wow, you only got 6 beds. It's like 4 bedrooms, 2 bath. It's like we got all this room. We converted one of the garages into a living area, so we had a huge living room. And I convinced this landlord to rent this house to us, 10-person house for $1,600 a month. Yeah, and we moved into it, and it's me on an empty mattress. Just, wow, this is great. No other furniture in the house. The lights are on. The water, the toilet flushes. It's me on a mattress. No, I don't even have sheets on it. It's just me on a mattress. Like, this is awesome. And then I'm like, holy shit, I can't afford to live here by myself. I got to get some people in here. So I convinced some guys from AA to move in that were in other situations. And then my sponsor at the time was the deacon at the local Catholic church. And he got up on the pulpit and guilted all those Catholics to donate all their extra furniture and dishes and artwork to Oxford House. So we got a truck and we went around to all these houses in the neighborhood. And surprisingly, there's all these appliances and furniture sitting outside of garages that we just picked up and took back to the Oxford House. We had so much furniture, we filled the other garage that was our smoking area so full that we had to give furniture away. We had to donate furniture that was donated to us because we just didn't have room for it all. So most of the $4,000 that was used to get the house going, we got to use to supplement for the rent the first couple of months till we filled up the house. But eventually, with 4 guys, $1,600 a month, that's still, okay, $166 a week. That's what we got to pay. And the going rate in Oklahoma at that time was $100 a week. That was the average EES for the state. So it was very, very high, very expensive. And the guys that lived there said, we can't afford this. I said, you know what? We became motivated to fill the beds. because Oxford houses are self-supporting. We're not going to ask for handouts. We support ourselves. We're done asking for handouts. We need to take care of our own. We can do this because we need to show the rest of the world that we are in recovery. We're not who we were in our addiction. We're now in recovery and we're self-supporting, and we can do this. So we filled the house up. We didn't have a chapter. Oklahoma City and Tulsa were an hour away each. They weren't coming to our house meetings. The outreach worker was trying to keep things going in those two metro areas, so he would pop in from time to time. But we did it on our own. I had the 60-minute video, and I had the house manual. And that's how we learned Oxford House. Now, made a few mistakes. I was the treasurer, the comptroller, and the signer. I didn't know that you couldn't do that. But I wanted to protect the finances, so I trusted myself to protect the finances. And slowly we started to learn and stumble through it. And eventually, the house is still going. It's had to be moved locations, and you know how we do. Sometimes we have to find a new property or better property, and relationship with landlords, they want to sell the house, da-da-da-da. But that was my first experience at Oxford House. I had to learn from the ground up. So a lot of you are in areas where there's existing houses or there's chapters or there's outreach, like there's all this support. So it's, as Jason said, and it's a very important term, that institutional memory is very important. It's like the telephone game. So if I go and say a paragraph to one person, it goes all the way around to the end. It's something completely different by the end. That's how Oxford House teaching works, is people come in and go out. So if somebody comes in, they sit down, you try to train them as house treasurer, you're going to share all the information you can that was shared to you, but then that person may not pick up on all of it. They pick up on most of it. They pick up on enough to do the job, but they may not pick up on all of it. Then that person moves out, and then the person that's treasurer trains the new person, and they teach them what they know, and that person may pick up some of it, but not all of it. And you see, so it starts to get watered down, like Jason was saying. And so that's why it's important we come together once a year for the World Convention, educate ourselves. That's why it's important we do the workshops every few months, the house officer workshops. You should be doing at least every 6 months. I prefer every 4 months, because you want to catch the cycle of people moving in. How many want to live the rest of their lives in Oxford House? How many want to die in an Oxford House? Honestly? We've been honest here? This is the most hands that's gone up. Usually it's like just one. Okay. Most people do not. Most people are ready to get buy their own house, get back with their family, go, to start a career. They want to do bigger things. They want to continue to grow. So no shame in that. That's great. That's your family. I applaud that. There's no shame in that. But for most people, it is a stepping stone to the next part of life. What Oxford House, I think, it really is just providing opportunity so that you can build a foundation in a personal recovery program on your pathway of choosing, and then move on to do greater things. And if that moving on means staying in Oxford House and helping the new people that come in, as long as you become a seasoned member, not a senior member, thumbs up. Now, if you become a senior member, it's time to move along. The cheap EES isn't a motivating factor to stay in the house. It's to help other people. So make sure that as you stay, you're staying for the right reasons. Don't move out too early either. How many of you, 2-timers, 3-timers, been in Oxford House more than once? You moved out too early, didn't you? You started to get some of that material stuff back. You got that significant other that's like, we should get an apartment. How'd that work out for you? Welcome home. So, I say all that to share with you that there's a lot of ways to get the information, but make sure you're going to the source when you're doing these workshops. Make sure you're getting the accurate information from the sources of the model, because there's a lot of what we call best practices out there that are things that work in areas but aren't necessarily part of the model. Does that make sense? So, curfews. How many of you have a curfew guideline in your house? You realize that that's not part of the model. You're not going to read in the manual that 10 p.m. on Thursdays you got to be home or you can't live in Oxford House. Right. It's just part of your house guidelines. Through the democratic process, you have chosen to have this structure put in place that supports the Oxford House model, but you got to understand the differences between best practices and the model. And if you get confused on that, what your house rules versus the Oxford House model, then we probably need to have a workshop so that we can clear that up. We're not going to clear all that up today. We're not going to open up a can of worms about what rules are on Oxford House are right or wrong. Okay, we're not, hold on, let me get through my PowerPoint. We're not going to get into some of the heated topics. Those are best held in a local level, local training. We want to give general model-related teachings here. So I am going to go through these next few slides before we get to the Q&A, and I'm going to help you get from that stage 1, 2, or 3 into the stage 4. I've seen houses go from stage 1 to stage 3 in just a few months, very, very quickly. If you get the house to buy into it and put in the work, you can do it very, very quickly. I've seen brand new areas pop up and instantly create stage 2 and stage 3 areas. Arizona is a good example. I supervised area for a little while. They started out with 0 houses a few years ago. They're getting close to 100 houses. In fact, we have a couple of staff. Where's the camera at? I want to say hi to Michael Robinson and Sarah Graham. They're not here. They're at home. We miss you. Wish you were here with us. It's easy. It's easy to do when you get the buy-in from the membership in the house. So let's look at it. Let's install the walls and the roof. So the 5 core principles: recovery, responsibility, accountability, communication, unity, and fun. Now, I'm going to go through these pretty quick. So if you start whining at me because you didn't get a picture, I'm sorry. We're going to share the PowerPoint. We're going to share the YouTube video. We're not going to keep this information from you, but you're going to have to click quick. Click quick. All right, let's talk about recovery. We want you to find a path and follow it. Like I said, and I'm going to say it again, Oxford House is a home for recovery, not a shelter for abstinence. When you come into Oxford House, it's not just to get a roof over your head. That's good. We want roofs over heads. But we want you to grow in recovery here. It's not just a place where you can do nothing and think that you're going to get along with everybody and it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's just not. This is what you want to target. You want to be true to yourself. Where are you at in your recovery? What do you need to work on? You got to be true to yourself. That's on some of the coins for a reason. It's very important to be true to yourself. You're going to need some one-on-one guidance. In the 12-step program, they call them sponsorships. I like Recovery Dharma. They call it mentorship. You have to find people that are ahead of you on the path that can keep you from the pitfalls that may befall you, that keep you from taking a detour when it's not necessary. Reading, writing, and sharing. If you think that you're just going to work it out all in your head, this recovery thing, that it's just going to happen, try reading some material. Try writing down, journaling, getting stuff out of your head and onto paper. You'd be amazed if you started journaling and writing stuff down and then reading it back to yourself, like, wow. But you take the power away from it. When it's in your head, it can cripple you, it can paralyze you, it can imprison you. Get it on paper. Share it. Secrets keep us sick, especially in Oxford House. Find a home group. Find a group of people that are on the similar path as you that you can connect with. Don't get caught in the trap that just because you live in an Oxford House that you're safe. You're in this protective bubble. You do have some protections in Oxford House, but if you think Oxford House is your recovery program, you don't understand how Oxford House works. Oxford House is a safe place to work a recovery program. It is not to substitute the recovery program. It is to supplement your recovery program. And remember, you will receive lessons and blessings along your journey. We need them both. Nobody likes the lessons. I don't like the lessons. I don't like being held accountable. But at the end of the day, after it's all said and done, I appreciate I have people around me that will be truthful to me and help me grow, because it's hard for me to see the little changes in me that could lead to negative behavior. It's hard to see the whole picture when you're inside the frame. I need people from a different perspective to be truthful to me. Recovery is an inside job. You can surround yourself with all the most beautiful people, beautiful things, pocket full of money, build those relationships up, get that new car, house. None of that matters. There are miserable rich people all over the world. And there are people in early recovery that have nothing, but they are on top of the world. A lot of us here, we are on top of the world. No matter what is around us, we know because internally we're working on our personal recovery, ain't nothing going to stop us. And you got to give back. You got to pay it forward. You got to serve others. If you hold it to yourself, then it's not as recovery is intended. It's intended to share with others. If you're hoarding it all to yourself, you're going to become a senior member. This is what you want to avoid: dishonesty, osmosis. You can't catch recovery just because your housemate that's sitting on the couch next to you has an awesome recovery program and talks about it in New Business. That don't mean you're in recovery just because you're sitting next to them. You can't catch it through osmosis by sitting on your ass around other people. Complacency. How many of you, I've been complacent before in my recovery. How many of you have been complacent? It's plateaued a little bit. Isolation. That's a big one for me. A big one for me. We all want these single rooms with the cable boxes, but it draws us away from the supports that we need. Go sit in the common area and have some fun. Resentment. Oh my gosh. Isolation, resentment, complacency. That's like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse when it comes to relapse. Measuring your success in the materials around you. Sorry, my screen here is delayed. Okay, I got a significant delay here. All right, take a quick picture. We got to keep it moving or we won't get to any questions or comments. All right, are we on the same one? Responsibility. Freedom and free. Imagine that. So how many of you enjoy the freedom of living in Oxford House? Having a voice and a choice. Voice and a choice. That's a big draw into Oxford House. I don't want nobody to tell me what to do. I'm a grown-ass man. Nobody tell me what to do. It comes with a cost. Responsibility. We have to be responsible for ourselves. If we don't want somebody telling us what to do, then we have to do it ourselves, so nobody will tell us what to do. What happens if you don't do what you're supposed to do in Oxford House? Somebody's going to come into your house and tell you what to do. Hopefully the chapter is going to knock on your door. So as individuals, we have a responsibility to grow in recovery. We have a responsibility to pay our ES on time and in full. Can't believe I have to write that in there, but on time and in full. How many of you have a zero balance? All right, put your hands down. How many of you owe a little bit of money, maybe a little bit behind? Honesty, there we go. That's all right. Positive, paid ahead, so now you're enabling somebody else to be behind. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. We want you to participate. We want you to participate. It's important. I sit in house meetings, and in these house meetings, you get people that aren't even paying attention. They aren't voting. Why aren't you voting? Your voice counts. This is a powerful tool. Complete your chores. I mean, come on. Are you grateful you live in Oxford House? How many of you are grateful? Show me. Take care of the property. Show me how grateful you are. Make it a better, cleaner house than when you leave than when the day you came in. How many of you are walking around seeing all the grime around the doorknobs and not doing nothing about it? Go buy a magic eraser and clean that stuff up. Baseboards are dusty. Clean those baseboards. Officer duties. You have a responsibility as an individual to perform an officer duty. I don't want to be treasurer. Learn how to do finances when you live in Oxford House so that when you move out, you can be responsible for your own finances and be confident in that. Why not learn while you're protected and there's accountability? You got to respect others. You don't have to like everybody you live with. We don't all get along. We're different people. It's okay, but show respect. Some people are doing the best they can with what they got that given day, and show them respect. Now, as houses, good citizenship. So in the greater community, you have a responsibility. You can't go act a fool in public and then think that you're going to be in good standing in Oxford House. Don't go breaking the laws. Okay, my screen is several seconds behind here. All right, for houses, Primary purpose. What's tradition 1? Provide housing and rehabilitative support for those that are suffering and want to get in recovery. That's our primary purpose. That's what houses have a responsibility to do, to fill your beds and then to replicate, open another house and fill those beds. That's our primary purpose. It's not to make sure that you're in at 10:59 instead of 11:15 and be waiting at the front door for you. The model. We have a responsibility to practice and protect the model. So you need to know the model before you can practice it. So learn the model. You got to honor the lease. There's an agreement that the house has with a landlord. You have to honor the lease. If you haven't seen your lease and some of the caveats in it, you need to understand the lease. The law, I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? We don't break the law anymore. We're good citizens. Chapter involvement. You have a responsibility to be a part of the chapter and interact with the other houses, share an experience, strength, and hope. We need that. What if we didn't have chapters? These individual houses, how many individual houses would survive on their own through the turnover without chapter involvement or support? We would not have 3,000 houses in the country, so we have a responsibility to be involved. Curb appeal, come on. Some of you mow the yard and that's it. Like, let's plant some flowers in the spring. Let's trim the hedges. You know, let's water some of the shrubs so they don't die. In Arizona, let's rake the yard. Let's rake the gravel. Plant a cactus. But I know we live in different regions, but let's really pick up our curb appeal. Let's make it one of the nicest houses on the block so we don't give ammunition to our neighbors. Safety. It needs to be a safe environment where you feel protected. You shouldn't feel unsafe in your own home. So you really need to think about some of the people you bring in as guests into your home. They're strangers to some of your housemates. You need to be mindful of that. I'm sending it out. You guys, come on. Accountability. See something, say something. Overcoming fear. It's the number one barrier to a house overcoming problems, is that fear to actually say something. That fear of confrontation. It paralyzes people. They're willing to have the entire house take a UA rather than confront one person on relapse behavior. Is that not the silliest thing? How many of your houses do that? Yeah, stop with the house UAs. The earlier the better. If you try to sweep it under the rug, it's not going to fix itself. It's going to fester, it's going to get worse, there's going to be gossip, resentment, all kinds of stuff going on around that. Use carefrontation. You don't have to be mean when you confront somebody. You don't have to be nasty with them. Come with respect and love that I don't want to see you continue to act out in whatever way it is. I want to see you grow. And I'm here to help you. But we need to talk about this. We need to sit down and talk about it. It's tools for growth, not weapons for punishment. I talked about that. Have realistic expectations. What you are confronting somebody on who moved into a house 2 weeks ago versus what you're confronting somebody on who's lived in a house for a year and a half. We hold everybody to the same standards, but you may have a different discussion one-on-one if there's dishes left in the sink from somebody who just moved in or somebody that's been there for a long time. Am I right? Yeah. Like, you know better. You've been here a year and a half. Like, you even have your own coffee cup. It's the one you bought at the convention you brought home and bragging about, and it's sitting in the sink. Warning, contract expulsion. So when it comes to minor behavior changes that lead a person to relapse type behavior, we want to talk to them one-on-one, maybe in a house sitting, depending on what it is. Then if we can't see that it's improving, we want to put them on a contract where we discuss it and we put some terms down that in order to maintain good membership, you have to follow these guidelines. And then if they still can't do it, then I'm sorry, you're letting us know through your behavior that you're unwilling to do what's necessary to maintain good membership, and we're going to have to ask you to leave. So use that. Now, obviously, there's some immediate expulsions, relapse, violence, criminal activity, significant criminal activity, those sort of things. You're not going to, now, gosh darn it, quit getting in fights in the front yard. We're going to give you a warning today. If you do it again, if the cops come over here with your warrant for your arrest, it's just a warning this time. I mean, you got to common sense, right? But most of the time, it's small behavior changes, a little attitude adjustments that we got to be made in the house. You got to get everybody involved. Don't think that just because a seasoned or senior member has the experience that they're going to facilitate and make all the decisions, and we're just going to vote in favor of what the seasoned member says. It's important for everybody, new and old, to get involved in the discussions when you're holding somebody accountable. Very important. Don't have the meeting before the meeting on the front porch when now, we got to talk about Billy. Come here, let's go sit on the porch. Come have a cigarette with me. It's 5 minutes before the house meeting, and you guys are determining already what the contract's going to be before you've gone in and had a discussion with the entire house. Seek outside support. Sometimes you need the chapter to help you. Sometimes you need outreach to help you because you're too in the middle of it to see the truth for what it is. All right, communication. I'm going to come through these a little quicker, so we got about 10 minutes for Q&A, okay? Communication, that's make it or break it. This is the bread and butter right here. This is all of the other things require that you actually communicate with each other. So positive communication, it has to be open, has to be honest communication, has to be respectful. We've talked about all this. Active listening is a part of communication. So you need to actually listen to what your housemates are telling you. Don't dismiss it because you disagree. It's okay for somebody to share their thoughts and feelings. They have every right in a house to share their thoughts or feelings, regardless if you disagree with it or not. They have every right to, and you must respect their thoughts and feelings. You can voice your opposition, and if we need to take a vote based on opposing feelings or thoughts on a situation, we can, but I'm going to respect how you think and feel about it. Doesn't mean you're wrong and I'm right because I think differently. We got to get away from that. One-on-one can be very positive. Sometimes we want to have that one-on-one conversation before we just puke it all over the house meeting. And y'all know what I'm talking about. During the business meeting, sometimes it's best to have it in the business meeting because it may be persisting. It may be something that we really need to talk about as a house. Sharing knowledge and experience, using I statements. Here's how I have been able to work through some of the stuff that I see you struggling with. You're getting up on time and making appointments on time. Whatever it is. There's all these little things we can help people improve. Then there's negative communication. There's gossip. You know what gossip needs? It needs ears to listen. You don't have to give it ears to listen. You can walk away and be like, I respect where you're coming from, but I can't participate in that today. Talking down to people. That's not right. We got to stop doing that. We got to lift them up. Your tone and your body language communicate a lot, sometimes more than the actual words do. So you really got to think about that in house meetings. Even when you're heated and emotional, sometimes it's best just to stop and be like, can we please pause this and maybe address it a little bit later? I need to collect myself. Texting and social media, stop it. Stop having meetings and text. Why you vote? You guys are taking votes through a group text. That is not a house meeting. You need to be together face to face, taking minutes, making motions. Everybody's in the same conversation at the same time. Some of you are getting a majority vote through a text message while somebody's at work. They get home. They're like, I didn't see it. I didn't get to vote. Well, we got a majority vote. Not everybody is practicing in that democracy. That's not egalitarianism. Just because you got a majority vote, that's manipulating democracy. That's what that is. Stop doing it. Character assassination, talking about people, talking them down when they're not around. Manipulation, I covered part of that already. Disrupting the chain of support. You don't like something that happened in your house meetings, you pick up the phone and call your outreach worker. How many of you have done that? Okay, let's talk about it as a house. If we can't solve it as a house, let's get the HSC or the chapter involved. If the HSC is baffled, then maybe we can get the state association or maybe a couple alumni to help out. The outreach worker should be one of the last phone calls. We really need to quit being so dependent on our outreach workers to solve all our damn problems. All right, last one. If you ain't having fun in recovery, you're doing it wrong. We are not a glum lot. I think Fun and Recovery is coming up, isn't it? It is. Is it right after this? I hear Brandy. Yeah. All right, so this is going to be a good segue into that because you're going to see what fun's all about. I hope it's at least PG rated. We'll see how much fun they're going to have. PG-13. The language may be a problem. All right, food. If you feed them, they will come. Just like Eric said during his speech, right? It's like they had food, I got in the car. So provide food. Even if only a few people show up, that's fine. Just keep showing out. Keep showing out. Find the person that knows how to work a grill. Find the person that can bake the cookies or whatever it is, and let's do it. Let's feed each other. Let's break bread together. Let's celebrate the milestones with each other. It's important. Put it on a calendar. Have a big paper calendar on your wall, dry erase board calendar on your wall. Everybody put your birthdays on there, and let's go to their home group. Even if it's not our pathway, let's go to their home group and celebrate their 30 and 60 and 90 days. That's a big deal. Let's have house unity events inside the house and outside the house. Let's do stuff together inside, maybe rent the UFC fight and have some fun if we got extra money because we know our EES is set right and we're a stage 3 house. We got a little bit extra money. We can afford to do that, so we vote to host the UFC fight. Or let's go out for steak night. Maybe we have somebody like Jason live in our house that gives us fines of $50 every month, and so we have a little bit of extra money. We can go have steak dinner. Chapter unity events and fundraisers. Okay, if the only time we're seeing our other housemates from other houses is at that chapter business meeting, we're not going to have much fun together as a chapter. Those business meetings can get boring. Talking about reports and money and talking all these talking heads at the chapter meeting. Let's go have some fun. Let's get out of the meeting hall and let's go have some fun and get to know each other in recovery. If you're a chapter officer, how many chapter officers we got in the room? You're a chapter officer. Go visit the houses that are strong and just introduce yourself and say, I want to meet the newcomers. If you're not visiting your houses on a rotation, other than when you get called in to fix problems, you're not being associated with anything positive. You're only being associated with the negative aspect of Oxford House, and then houses, they don't want chapter to come in. We don't want chapter in our house. Every time chapter comes in our house, somebody leaves or they tell us what to do or they try to get in our business. Go visit them when there's no issues in the house and just say, hey, I'm in recovery. I want to hang out and have fun with you. Let's go do something together. Local events, recovery conferences, think big, brainstorm. Let's come up with some ideas. HSC committee can really have some meetings to talk about this. Let's create a sports team. I know there's softball teams, volleyball teams. There's all kinds of teams across the country. Let's do that. Let's replicate that across the country. Let's create the Oxford Sluggers, and let's go have a softball team and kick the crap out of the local treatment center team and just have fun with people in recovery. Hobbies and normie stuff. There's normie stuff to do. As a house, let's go do the hot yoga class together. Let's go take some hip hop dance lessons together. Let's go do some normie stuff. Let's go have some fun that doesn't necessarily have to be around recovery events. So now let's furnish and decorate. So let's review. We have the 4 house stages. Take a picture of this one. We have the 4 house stages: survival, stable, successful, significant. Then we have the core principles that will help you move up from stage 1 to 2 to 3 to 4: recovery, responsibility, accountability, communication, unity, and fun. Now, not every house, even the stage 4, have all 5 core principles running on all cylinders all the time. It's going to ebb and flow based on membership, based on what you got going on. People are getting their lives in order. Some of them can participate. Others are trying to reunite families, get a job, school, all that. So there's a lot going on with everybody. But figure out which ones really need the most work in your house and go back to your house and say, hey, we got some tips on how we can improve one of these core principles, and let's see if we really put some focus on this core principle, if we can move up that stage, move up that house stage. We really want to see a majority of the country on stage 3. We really want to see that. Most of the houses are stage 2. We want to shift to most of the houses being stage 3. And I think collectively we can all do that, can't we? Yeah. It's not hard to do. The blueprint's right here. We just built a house together, a stage 4 house together. So, in closing, as you guys line up for maybe some questions or comments. We have just a few minutes, and Jason and I will share the mic to try to answer or comment as best we can. In closing, let me just say, it is an honor for me as an individual in long-term recovery to come up here and have microphone time to be able to share my experience, strength, and hope with you. But I want you to understand that I learn from you all every day. I learn from you all how to be a better person, how to be better in my recovery. And I think we can all learn from each other. So when we go back home and we're honest and we're open and we're willing with where we're really at, I think we can really do some amazing things. I think sometimes we make the ceiling too low for us because of what society has told us over and over and over again. It gets beat into our head. The stigma, that drum, that stigma drum. Let's overcome that. Let's break through that. And let's take this to the next level. We can really do some amazing things. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to start over here, and we're going to go one to the other. What's your question or comment?
Thank you, guys. My name is Brittany, and I'm from Everett, Washington. This, to me, is like one of the most important breakaways, and I just feel that all of this information getting relayed to all of the houses would be so much more efficient and better if you guys were able to email those slides to all of the houses. Is there any chance of that?
Yes.
Because I've watched your guys' video on this topic from last year, and it's like an hour long, and just with new people coming in the house, it would just be nice to have it like printed off and concise like that.
I can email it out, yes.
That would be amazing. Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Hey everybody, I'm Bam, Louisiana Chapter 3 Chair. First of all, thank y'all for all that stayed because that's the important shit right here. So y'all were talking about just unity and not like downplaying on people, and like I just wanted to say, like, I have a house full of guys, 3 of them which I've known all my life, so like legit knuckleheads. We grew up doing all the same shit, so like we were like in and out of prison. All like 3 of us have been shot, stabbed, and then like I noticed a big impact in the house whenever, like you say, it's like the law of attraction. If you put good into someone and you constantly complimenting them or constantly just being positive towards each individual in the house, it makes such a difference. So like this is a really amazing slide, man, and I just want to thank y'all for that.
Thank you very much.
My name is Clint. I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm the chapter secretary. I have 2 questions. One is, what is the actual difference between having a charter and not having a charter? And my second question is, what is the explanation of autonomy really means in Oxford House?
So if you don't have a charter, you're not considered an Oxford House under the Oxford House Charter. Most houses open, they're under what's called a conditional charter. That's generally what they have, and then they apply for a permanent charter after about the first 90 days. Most of your houses in your area more than likely have permanent charters. It's the newer houses that are under the conditional charters. And what was your second question? I'm sorry.
Autonomy. What does it really mean?
Autonomy is the ability for the houses to make the decisions on their own. Where that comes into play is when a house is making a decision that could possibly damage or affect Oxford houses as a whole, that particular autonomy can be taken away. And that's when chapters and state associations will step in to direct the houses back to making the decisions that don't affect us as a whole. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, this side.
Hi, I'm Trina. I'm from Hillsboro, Oregon, and I moved here from Toronto, Canada after 12 years of being outside the United States and left a really abusive marriage for 20 years, and I thought I was coming into a safe place, and I came into a house that's at stage 1. And so I've been there for just like 3 months, and I have an AA background, and they taught me a lot. And so I just desire my house to get even to a stage 2 would be a lot more mentally healthy for me.
Well, you're in the right place.
So thank you so much for all this information.
We're going to connect you with an experienced female, okay, so you can talk, and we'll get you some support, okay?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Will, and I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. First of all, I'm an interior designer as well. So I would urge you guys to reword that instead of decorate, use design. Because as a designer, we take people's wants, needs, and how they live, and we transform that into a three-dimensional space, which we kind of do that in recovery as well, right? My second question to you is, obviously, I'm in a new house, and we want to get things for free. Is there a packet or any kind of tools that we could use for when we go to people, or if we go to businesses and we can say, hey, we're from Oxford House, and we'd like to see if you would donate bed frames, mattresses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Where do we utilize that? How do we get that information?
Yes, we do have that information, and Jeremy and Hayden can definitely get you that information. It's some pamphlets that we have working with the community.
Okay.
So we can definitely get you that information.
And we are a 501c3, right?
So Oxford House Incorporated is the 501c3. The individual houses themselves are not nonprofit and tax exempt. So if they're donating something, if they're donating cash in that manner, they have to donate it to Oxford House Incorporated.
Right.
But we can also use the tax deductible receipt for them to donate furniture. So
that'd be awesome.
Jeremy and Hayden can help you get that information.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, unfortunately, we are out of time. We need the next group to set up. I'm sorry, we have to stay on time, but I will be right outside the doors. If you have some questions about the panel, I will be happy to answer those who didn't get their question answered. Thank you very much.